Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen chance in this Truth Bomb Riff. This is Patrick Lovell coming at you on Friday, August 1st, 2025, joined by my unbelievably powerful colleague, a woman who needs no introduction to those who've met her or have read her, but hopefully we're introducing you to millions and more people as this effort grows, is my colleague, Roseanne Rabiola Miele, the Chicago Mighty Mouse that has been relocated to Nevada, aka Vegas, baby, decades ago. But look, I wanted to open up this dialogue with a sort of perspective to those that are starting to get more of a vibe between us and who we are and what we're trying to do with what we can see behind us, the Clean New Deal, and especially a weekly sort of recap, if you will, of things that we're seeing and how it fits into the Clean New Deal. But this morning, Roseanne, I got to tell you, look, the headline at the moment, right, on the New York Times is that Ghislaine Maxwell is being transferred to a
Right,
minimum security
right,
prison. So we know that, whatever the information is on the Democrats is soon to be coming. I'm absolutely certain about that. Now, meanwhile, plug and play into what I've been talking about all week with folks, and really it was frustrating yesterday. I haven't brought you up to speed on this, but I spoke to somebody on Signal, okay, who has a huge audience, and she's definitely in the sort of right trajectory of who we are. Obviously, her particular focus is Trump's got to be impeached. He's a criminal con artist,
yeah,
rapist, pig, yada, yada, yada. And she knows big picture scenarios, but she doesn't know the details of what it is that we're revealing. And she got a little bit lost in the mix when I was trying to kind of convey to her, because she's a podcaster and she knows how to communicate and how things work. But the dialogue between us revealed this. Okay. So just conversationally, I'm going, listen, a lot of what's being revealed and questioned and all of the elements that are involved with Epstein is a direct, what I like to say when I post on, especially Blue Sky, a gateway drug to what it is that we're revealing. And she's like, "Oh, does that mean that you have, special inside information and sort of surprising stuff about Epstein?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand what I'm saying. I'm not an expert in Epstein. I'm just responding to all things Epstein, like we all are at the moment." And I asked the same questions years ago about Epstein that now suddenly everybody's starting to transcend. And let me put this into perspective. The mainstream media knows that it's safe to go after Epstein because of the fissure that it's created within MAGA. And it's that 24-hour cycle stuff. What's he going to do? What's safe? What are they hiding? Let's see the Epstein files. Let's make him clean. Let's all these other things. But it's a bit of a game of roulette if you look at the DNC and everybody else, because everybody knows, who's ever known anything about this Epstein situation, that former President Clinton was as much involved with Epstein as was Donald Trump. In fact, we saw that, long before 2017 and Epstein being really, arrested under Trump's first administration, Bill Barr being the the Attorney General of the United States. And ultimately, what's insane about that is the son of a guy who came out of the OSS, who happened to be the principal at the Dalton School, where Epstein, without a college education, had the opportunity to teach at this prestigious Manhattan school that then dials him into Bear Stearns, where he learns how to do offshoring and outsourcing. Then he starts to navigate the situation where he's managing um, based on literally power of attorney for some of the biggest fortunes in the United States. That doesn't happen by just happenstance. Billionaires don't go, "Oh, yeah, I happen to have an infatuation with you. You're a handsome guy. I want to have a gay relationship with you." And yeah, you don't sign over multi-billion-dollar operations to a dude without a college degree without there being a intrinsic paradigm that's at play. And a lot of people, of course, are asking the right questions about, uh, you know, um, intelligence, Mossad, CIA, global, blackmail, that sort of thing. Because, of course, I mean, it's like nothing to see here, folks. You've got the richest, most powerful, smartest people all being, basically, you know, put into Epstein Island, and what could go wrong, or what information could they get if you understand compromat and all the other stuff. And that's our version of what the Russians have done forever. And this is stuff that's gone on eons, quite frankly, right? But suddenly, all of a sudden, everybody's asking the right questions. Now, in a side sort of parallel to this, and I've mentioned this to you about her many times, a woman by the name, a young woman, relatively young, by the name of Whitney Webb, who's done a lot of really deep dive on basically the mafia, both the Italian and Jewish mafia, going back to the 30s, what they've done, how they created Vegas, money laundering, Miami, all of these different names that are involved and how they fit in. And she really provides some fantastic detail. But the most intriguing about it is its convergence with intelligence post OSS, World War II, into the CIA, and what the CIA has been doing forever. Okay, which all dovetails into this. Now, going back to the final piece of this equation to let you riff, and why intrinsically what we're providing is so monumentally important, so monumentally huge, so monumentally everything, that I can have the audacity to say that Epstein is the gateway drug to what we're revealing, which requires the Clean New Deal. And I've been posting recently, as you know, just to people just out, the proclamation does, this perversion, this sickness, this gross triad of, pornography and child, pedophilia, and all of these gross things just make you feel just polluted and toxic, and you've got to cleanse yourself. We'll look no further than the Clean New Deal, my friends, because we literally have the composite answers to everything that all of this stuff is a roadmap to. Okay, and so the final piece of this equation, I spoke to Reagan Boychuk this morning, just so you know, and we covered a whole lot of stuff, and I'm sure you'll see that soon. And then the second part of it is that, there was an interview with this guy who I believe came from Israel, who happens to be connected to Lev Parnas. Lev Parnas is somebody I interviewed the other day. Lev Parnas knows a lot of people, particularly in intelligence, and it seems like the mob, of course. And this guy was interviewed by this guy, Warhajit Ali. He does some really good stuff, but he's a younger guy and he doesn't know the stuff that we know. But he's very smart. He was a journalist for the New York Times. But again, this is how deeply embedded all of this stuff is that we're revealing, that nobody can put their fingers around, their heads around, except here's this guy that gets interviewed by this stuff, and he's saying the same things we are. He says, literally, listen, Epstein is the tip of the iceberg. Yes, it is control, it is intelligence, it is billions of dollars, it's laundering, but it's laundering for the machine, the financial system, the global conspiracy. What do you think the savings and loan crisis was? What do you think the 2008 great financial crisis was? This guy literally says this without explaining what those things are. And here we are with the con that you can see at thecon.tv, which is literally the largest racketeering enterprise in the history of the world that did the same techniques basically as, let's say, P. Diddy or Epstein or whatever else that we might call the honey trap, but with liar's loans to people to get houses to flip and do all this other shit. And what this guy's talking about is this global racketeering enterprise that ultimately, and this came out of his mouth, that's fully guaranteed by the Federal Reserve. I'm like, oh, well, somebody finally gets it. And that's what we've been trying to get America to understand, that you're getting pissed on and they're telling your head, they're pissing on your head telling you it's rain. You know that the whole system is corrupt, but you don't know who did what, when, and how. And this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger by the day and more nakedly corrupt. We've got a RICO presidency. We've got Don the Con showing to MAGA, hey, I'm willing to cover for the elites. I'll let Maxwell get out as long as she just turns over all the Democrats. And he wants to arrest, by the way, don't forget, Trump had said that Obama was guilty of treason because of using documentation fraud and falsification to frame him. Now, meanwhile, we know that thousands of falsification of business records, and Trump have been doing that the whole time, but we've got tens of millions of documentation fraud and fabrication and felonies and everything else that's even monumentally bigger, that led to tens of trillions of dollars being backdoored into this system illegally, which we call MMT for criminals. Look, this is the emperor's new clothes on really bad acid. Everybody can see it, but nobody can see it. So that's the huge ramp up to you, my sister. What the fuck are you going to tell the world now, given what you've seen up close and personal for the last 5?
Yesterday, you're talking to somebody who has a big audience. All right. I'm talking to somebody in their 20s because I I work in those circles with young people, with people under 30. Okay. Here I am, old enough to be their grandmother. They I will tell you this young man that I spent nearly 2 hours on the phone with in his 20s, political science major at UNR. That's the University of Nevada, Reno, Vietnamese heritage. He gets the big picture. Okay. He is not looking for notoriety. He is not looking for clicks. He is looking for solutions. So I talked to him about the Clean New Deal. When you talk to young people about the Clean New Deal and you say to them, do you know, you remember the New Deal? They don't remember that. You can't talk to them about FDR and the New Deal. But when you start to explain things about uh, who did the New Deal benefit, who did that benefit? And of course, I'm going to tell you all day long and twice on Sunday, it benefited white folk. It helped to create those nice white suburbs. So when I start talking about that, then he understands perfectly. But he understands, like, intuitively, the Clean New Deal is a solution. I could take any issue, talk about housing, Medicare, homelessness, jails, Gaza, LGBTQ, anything. Why don't we have what we deserve and what we need to not just survive, but to thrive? So you got important, popular podcasters, interviewers looking for, I'll say, trying to be the big cheese. Because I call the people on the left with all these different groups, and they're just part of the machinery of collecting money for the DNC. I, you know, everybody wants to be the big cheese. So to me, when your heart and your head is in solutions for the people, and you're not trying to be a big cheese, you want people to thrive, you are coming from a whole different place. I have always been, and he reminded me of this as I'm talking about how did I become an activist? I'm pushy, okay? I'm pushy. So because I'm pushy, I say to people, come here, come over here, come with me. And I've always been involved with people who I have seen who want to do good for the community. So it's nothing for me to take it to the next level. And the next level to me is the whole world. Why do we have, one example, why do we have illicit drugs coming into countries all over the place? Because the corrupt people in one country are are bringing it into another country, and that other country is letting the corrupt cops and the judges, yeah, come on in. Is that not how everything is all connected? If you didn't have the corruption, if you didn't have people who wanted their own power and their own money and to be in charge, you wouldn't have all these other people suffering. They don't, the big boys, I call them the big boys. They got the money, they got the power. Trump Trump looks like he has the power. He could do this, he could do that. But look, if those ICE agents today said, no, we are not arresting anybody. Where does Trump's power go? Right down the toilet, doesn't it? What can he do? Is he going to go fucking out there and arrest people? What can he do? What can he do if the people who are not kissing his fat ass say no? That's all you got to do. You say no. You want
Look,
to be great.
all of those guys take an oath, at least with the guns, to the Constitution above a person. But what we have now is fascism, and what we've always talked about is corruption burns and fuels fascism. And no, we don't have to think about the next election to like save us from fascism. It's already here. We're not going to have a free and fair election. They're already gerrymandering the hell out of Texas, and they've got the Supreme Court, and they've got
Yeah.
Congress, and they've got the FBI, and they've got the DOJ, and we've got all sorts of plans to be able to turn the tables on that are paradigmatic. But you have to understand that where we're coming from is the revelation of the largest criminal conspiracy in the history of the world that never ended. Now, people could talk about genocide of North American Indians. They could talk about a variety of different things throughout history that, might be on par, obviously, in terms of the actual, carnage of it all. But in terms of just sheer size and scope, nothing comes close to what we're talking about by way of technology and how money spread of the world is fast. Go ahead.
Ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed,
Ludicrous.
and that was 14 years ago, 15 years ago. Now it's even gotten worse. Now it's just all part of the same play that just continues to evolve, just like a, a contagion, right? I mean, that's what this is, but it's still humanity that's involved with this, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we learned long ago that if you, get a group of men to plunder, then you can create a legal code to authorize it and a moral code to glorify it. This has been 400, 500 years in the making. I mean, it's the same formula of smash and grab and imperialism. And the difference is the law. And so what the clean new deal is to actually do what the country was created to do. That's why we had a revolution. That's why we had a Bill of Rights. That's why we had the Constitution, all of which is being steamrolled by fascism. And Americans are like, they'll see the movie and watch it and root for the good guy and the theater of stuff we've seen my entire adult life of like nobody would sit down and take this stuff if they were Americans. But what are we doing? We're sitting down and taking it because we got our popcorn. Who's going to happen, in the next like overload of information and disinformation and all of the different ways that these things happen that we have to be able to bust through to create the clarity of this pollution because that is the solution, which again is the reestablishment of the law. So I'm going to bust out the precepts real quick because I want people to understand because I've got to move on to some other appointments that I've got and then we'll reconnect later. But um, the genesis of the Clean New Deal is you have to understand the four corners of our existence, really. You got to ask the question, what is qualified immunity? What is presidential immunity? What is judicial immunity? And what is the electoral college? Just like Epstein, they're all perversions of what this is supposed to be, because we're supposed to be a democracy where the law creates equality and has integrity. Well, of course, it doesn't. And so we're like the Hindenburg in a massive eruption of a cataclysmic fireball that's taking us all down if we don't somehow get a control of this. And millions of people are going to die. That's not hyperbole. That's just based on U.S. aid not being able to get the medicine to
They're
people in Africa.
they're already, and everybody lets them
Right.
die.
And I acknowledge that there's a lot of stuff baked into U.S. aid that looks like it could be part of all sorts of blackmail and intelligence. I'm
Of
sure it
course.
does. And that's how these guys operate. And there's even more to it than that. But within the context of the the four questions that I had proposed, the four sides of the Rubik's Cube, you have to understand that the precepts of the Clean New Deal are first and foremost that we're going to have to create a new Glass-Steagall. It was a law after the Great Depression to basically rid the financial system from gambling with other people's money. But the caveat now is you can't use the full faith and credit of the United States to create exigent lending opportunities to save a bankrupted casino that got that way based on racketeering. I know it sounds ridiculous and absurd because it is, but that's the world that genesis us into this moment of having the Rico Mad Magazine Mad King president, right? I mean, it doesn't get any
It's
more
a
absurd.
get out of jail free card. Okay.
It's insane.
That's it.
Well, but again, here's the analogy, right? Let's just say I go lie to a bunch of people, like create a Ponzi scheme, I blow it all up. It was all illegal and everything else. And instead of going to jail, the bank gives me 10x of what I was into. I mean, that's basically what it went to. Nobody operates that way except for the top guys. Okay. And that's exactly how they operate. Because as we see in this genesis of Ghislaine Maxwell and everything else, there's two sets of laws. Those for all
Uh,
of us below the line, and then those that are immune to it above the line, which is tyranny, which is the reason why the United States was born in the first place. The flip side of that, like Bernie Sanders always says in AOC, and everybody agrees with this, that you got to get rid of Citizens United. That's just this dark money triad that basically takes all this free money and buys off the attorneys so that we now have a nakedly corrupt RICO Department of Justice, which is absolutely insane. It's not, like we're trying to tell you that, oh yeah, Eric Holder made certain deals with the Faustian bargain to be able to pull this off so you didn't see it. No, this is out in front of you. They had Todd Blanche, the assistant director of the Department of Justice, go make a deal with a convicted pedophile. And that they're actually playing ball with because she's gonna drop a dime on Clinton and everybody else, okay? And that's gonna presumably give Trump his way out of this, okay? So that's first and foremost, those two pieces. Second, third, we're going to have to be able to demonstrate to the American people that these motherfuckers have already gotten away with $71 trillion on the low end. That was between 2009 and 2019. That's not even the last 6 years, okay? This happened through three administrations illegally. You run into catch up, just look at Patrick Lovell, Truth Bombs the Con. Sorry. TheCleanNewDeal.org, go to the white papers, check out Federal Reserve Act 13.3. All of the evidence is there. This is exactly spelled out, and we have all of the information. 71 trillion. So if you're worried about climate change, if you're worried about systemic racism in prisons, if you're worried about education, if you're worried about NOLA and science and atomic science and veterans affairs and yada yada yada, none of that is even a blip on the radar of 71 trillion. There's 1,000 billion and a trillion. The United
don't give a
States
shit
Navy
about, yeah.
the United States Navy, with I don't know how many carrier groups at this point, has like somewhere in the 250, $300 billion budget. Okay, we're talking $71 trillion to a tiny group of people that have complete control. Again, the same guys that are pulling off this Epstein situation 20, 30, 40 years later. Okay. And now media is just finally asking the basic questions, but it's insanity. And then moving forward, like I said in the four questions, we got to get rid of presidential immunity. We got to get rid of qualified immunity. We got to get rid of judicial immunity and the electoral college. Why? Because it's just simply a perversion of power. They're pissing on your head, telling you it's rain through asymmetric information that you can't see the forest for the trees because you're buying the lie. That's it. And then the last three precepts are You can't allow Congress to front run and basically, be a hedge fund to itself. And,
Yeah.
and because they've got the
Jerome
knowledge of where they're going to
Powell.
spend the money, or like, yeah. Well, and let's not forget though what they just did with ICE. This means that senators who are involved with pulling off, budgeting for ICE, they could probably invest in some mammoth, prison industrial
Company
complex,
that's, yeah,
and they're making money on creating this fascist empire. It's like,
it's all
what?
freaking money.
Right. As we're kicking off 17 million people off of Medicaid that include the most vulnerable, right? And then you've got to create 13 justices on the Supreme Court to counteract what's going on in the Supreme Court because of the sellout of the most corrupt court in history, Roberts and Thomas and Alito and Kavanaugh and Barrett and Roberts. I think I mentioned at the outset because he's the lead on this. But my God, guys, the corruption is insane. And all the Clean New Deal is to purge the misery of tyranny, to unleash the renaissance of possibility. I swear to God, if you can't get that to your skull, you are literally complicit in your own demise. Don't worry about the guy down the street who's getting evicted through ICE and going to Alligator Alcatraz. No, you're screwing yourself.
That's right.
You're done. We're all done. And it does feel biblical. We've been talking about it the whole time. I mean, throughout our process together, I don't know how many, posts I've done that is like, yeah, this is Armageddon / the rapture. It is, because this is all an ocean of madness and lies. And we're giving you the truth. Does that mean I'm Jesus Christ? Does that mean that, we've got Mary Magdalene here? No, we're just two regular people that know how shit works, and we're fucking being courageous and telling you how the whole thing works. That doesn't mean we're the saviors. The truth is the savior. We're just simply the
Right.
deliverers. And the opportunity, because thanks to Trump and these cronies and MAGA, they proved to everybody that this is just insanity. And going into the streets to protest, super important, no question
Yep.
about it. But without a vision of going forward that millions and millions of people are championing, forget it. What we're up against are the technocratic wizards that have been paid by billionaires for 3 decades to create this plan to rug pull our democracy and the law. It's as simple as that. It's tyranny. So I'll give you the final words here, but
And
tell.
the final precept is we got to have term limits. Okay. We got to have term limits. Not on they being a public servant is a wonderful idea, but you are a public servant to serve the people, not to serve your fucking self and your fat ass. Okay.
I love that.
That's what it's all about. Okay. So people really have to start thinking about not only term limits, but ranked choice voting, where you minimize the power, the corrupt grip of both the Democratic and the Republican Party, the grip they have on folks. I'm not gonna call people names if you wanna, but I will. Okay? If you wanna go kiss the ass of one party or another, you got it wrong. Okay? Because you're kissing their ass, they're kicking your ass. That's what they're doing.
Well, look, the Democrats is a part. A lot of people are complaining that the Democrats don't have an answer, because they don't. The one bright hope for some is this guy Zohran Mamdani is running for the mayor of New York City, but
Right.
based on what? Public transportation, maybe rent control. That's nowhere near. And by the way, he is in the den of the belly of the beast with all the billionaires that are like they're going to try to take him out and everything else. He doesn't have a plan close to the Clean New Deal. Bernie Sanders doesn't have a plan close to the Clean New Deal. Bernie Sanders talks about 3 precepts of the Clean New Deal, obviously Citizens United, and then he talks about the billionaire class and taxing, but he's not talking about a rug pull to reestablish the law. They're not dealing with reality. They're not dealing with A, we've already lost. B, the whole thing is completely corrupt, even though we can all see it. And they don't have a way out of this, because they're all, at the moment, the guys that have been there forever, they're still playing ball with the kleptocrats. As Bill Black says, the robber barons. I'd like to call them the Confederacy. All Trump is to me is just some clown that's basically a Confederate with his plantation, and he wants to have mint juleps while he's, golfing his fat ass on the taxpayers' dime. And it's socialism for the rich. I like to say that, even though I understand the differences between what socialism is supposed to be. But the short of it is, and I'll finish up with this, my friends, and I've been saying this to the ends of the earth and back from the mountaintops, and I've been screaming it. And you need to get this through your skull. And I hope you are inspired by this. When you live in truth, you live in light. When you live a lie, you're depraved. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. When you live a lie, inside you die. When you, me, and everybody you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in liberty and integrity and sustainability and beauty and possibility, all of those things that make us what we are, if we unify behind the Clean New Deal, that is our destiny to purge the misery of tyranny, to unleash the renaissance of possibility. You have to become a nuclear reaction vector to the big bang of truth that we are delivering. And there in itself becomes the Clean New Deal. You want to part the Red Sea? You want to part the pollution of the clouds? The Clean New Deal is the torch of Lady Liberty that will guide us forward to redeem the world. Am I wrong?
You are 117% correct. And I know this can happen. I've had two young men, both in their 20s, one from the relatives from Jamaica, one from Vietnam. They opened their mind to me. I opened my mind to them. And guess what we found out? We were in the same place. You open your mind to the possibilities of the truth, what the truth can do for you. Open your mind. That's all we're asking you. Open your mind. And this light, this power, this courage, this energy just flowed with the three of us on different days, but all in the same week. I'm 76, one is 20 something, the other one is maybe just 20. And boom, boom,
That's the big bang of truth. That's the big bang of
right?
truth, blasting through the darkness and what we've been on is the righteous grind to, ultimately, I'm telling you, this is the chemo of this cancer of lies, is the truth. And I know that there are others out there that go like, fuck that. The truth is subjective and it's this and that. No, we're not talking philosophy here. We're not
Right.
talking religion. We're talking who did what, when, and how. Here's the evidence. This is how things work. Here's the murder weapon. Here's the fingerprints. This is the emails. I mean, people, wake the fuck up. All right, my friend, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Say hello to everybody. Please like, subscribe, and share. Please join Roseanne on this Odyssey. Guys, it's really up to you, me, and everybody you see to be able to do this. So please join us onwards and upwards. And until next time, we'll catch you soon. All the best, Roseanne.
Bye bye.